Hey there, Teisha here, and welcome to the Hurdle2Hope Show, live from Daisy Hill here in Australia. You can see in the background that is a wattle tree. I absolutely love this tree. This signifies to me that spring is in the air, so can you see it there? And yeah, sorry, I'm just showing you it there as well. If you're listening, not watching me on YouTube, check this out a little bit later because it's been a really cold winter. So hopefully some warmer days are not too far in the future. So today's episode, I'm really excited to share with you this chat. And I say a chat because I did forget it was recording. I'm speaking to the incredible Tara Lea. Tara and I actually connected. A friend of mine had a psychic reading and just said Tara was amazing, so down to earth. And when I looked at Tara's details, I saw that similar to me, Tara is also dealing with a cancer diagnosis. So I thought, wow, what an amazing conversation it would be just to see what Tara's approach to that has been. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know that I'm a big believer in when you approach or deal with a massive hurdle in your life, you need to challenge your thinking. I didn't do that early on with MS, but certainly over the last 20 years, I've definitely challenged my approach to my health and well-being. As I constantly share, I have a medical team around me, but part of my healing 100% has been open to energy healing and really diving a lot deeper in terms of spirituality. So have an open mind when you listen to this chat with Tara. I hope you get lots out of it. I certainly did. Tara opened my mind to new ways of approaching cancer as well. Yeah, and I just loved it. Also, if you are connected with Tara, I was very honoured that Tara was happy to come on the show and that this was a safe place to really share what she's going through. Some of you mightn't be totally aware of what she's doing, but we both thought, what better way of really sharing that than hopping on to the Hurdle2Hope Show. Enjoy the chat and I'll be back shortly. Welcome to the Hurdle2Hope Show. I'm your host, Teisha Rose, and this podcast, it's about acknowledging that unexpected hurdles interrupt all of our lives, but it's how you respond that will define your experience. Each week, we'll be having real conversations with people whose lives have been interrupted and those who offer us support through our most challenging times. Each reminds us that even in the darkest moments, hope is always there. So welcome, Tara. Thank you so much for joining me here on the Hurdle2Hope Show.
I'm really stoked to be here. We chatted a couple of weeks ago and this was just such an organic next step, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually love this because I'm looking forward to having a chat, and I think I'll be forgetting that I'm on screen and going to be on YouTube because I like being immersed in the conversation without actually worrying about what's next to chat about. But for those who don't know you, we've got an audience all around the world. So just give us a little bit of an in as to where we're chatting to you from and just a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Tara and I am a lot of things, but mostly in my work, I'm a camel behaviorist, like camels with a hump, not cattle. So I've been doing that for over 10 years. So I teach people all around the world about camel behavior and how to take care of them as pet camels mainly. Surprisingly, a lot of people have pet camels or want pet camels. So I've been doing tourism stuff also in that 10 years, as well as now I'm mostly focusing on the education side of it and just helping people live out their wildest camel dreams and goals, whatever that looks like for them. I'm also a psychic medium, which I know you have been familiar with that work. Mm-hmm. And that's relatively new thing for me because I've always had the ability, but I had a few childhood experiences that really freaked me out, and I didn't have mentors around me. I didn't have anyone to say, actually people were gaslighting me, say, you can't, that's not true. That's not going to happen, or that didn't happen, or my parents would be driving past like a car accident. I'd just feel everything, and I didn't know how to cope with that. So essentially, I kind of just blocked it out for many, many years until really the last 5 years, and I've sort of started playing with it. And then it was just a huge like, okay, you're doing this now. Like this is not negotiable. And honestly, I had the capacity for the work, and I have like, it was just, people just found me. Like I've never marketed it. I've only now recently just put a website page up on my website to say, hey, this is what I do, because that just felt like the next step. But yeah, that's my professional life. And I'm also a mum, and I also, like to be essentially an athlete in my own little ways. And yeah, so busy over here, and I love adventures. Adventures are my thing. I've traveled a lot for my work and my personal needs. And yeah, so I'm here for this life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw on Instagram you've been skiing recently, and I was like, wow.
And you know what? I have to disclose to everybody, like, because I'm usually good at a lot of things quite quickly. And when I went skiing, I just could not believe that I was not Olympic level on the first day. How can I did some doozies, like full on, like I've got bruises all over me. And yeah, I just rolled down the ski slope, and I was about to rage quit. And I'm like, no, I think I've got this. But yes, so I'm also very fully human. Like I think people, when they think psychic medium, or, I do present as a very shiny object to people, and they're like, this girl's got it all. So they see me doing these things and like, well, it's good for, like, of course she can do it, because like she's all the things. And I've only really recently figured this out, that other people see me in this way. But the truth is, I'm very human. And one thing that we're going to chat about in this episode is that last year I got diagnosed with cancer. How does a psychic get diagnosed with cancer? How does a person who's fit and healthy gets diagnosed with cancer? Eats plant-based, all those things. So it's a very, very human experience we're all having. And I'm not excluded from that.
No, but we did connect because a very close friend of mine actually was going through some pretty horrendous things and had a psychic reading with you. And she chatted to me and she's like, Teish, the best, most down to earth, real, really real. Felt like I was just chatting to someone who was getting messages. So then I was like, oh, okay, I better check this out. So then we connected, and that's what really drew me, and what on this spiritual journey for me is authentic people who aren't just meditating all the time and not part of this world. And that's what you bring, which is, yeah, you don't always find that.
It's true. And I was even in the sauna last night. I always find saunas are these weird containers where people just really get vulnerable with you, and or with me, I don't know, but we're all in our bathers, we're all in the sauna, and I walk into this sauna and there's two ladies sitting there in there, and I instantly see AA, like in my head, I see AA. I'm like, this is weird. And I walked in, and within 30 minutes, they're like, oh, we're the AAs. And so I can't remember the names. They both started with A. And then they were like, oh, and we're also AA. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, your name's AA. They're like, oh no, we're Alcohol's Anonymous. And I'm like, oh my God. Anyway, so they're going to get some readings off me too. So there's this container where people just instantly feel, and also as a kid and into teenage years, like people would just confide in me. And I'm like, why am I this magnet for people to unpack their lives with me? Yeah. And then I realized, I'm getting downloads as this is happening, and I can help you with this. So, but that begs to differ, like, and this is a question I often ask myself, like, how does someone who's so intuitive get cancer? And the truth is, I actually knew when I had cancer. Like, I was like, all good downloads are happening in the shower or on the toilet. Or so, for me, I had that. I'm just like, it was like, okay, you have cancer, but you don't have to freak out. Freaking out came when the medical people got involved, because they were freaking out, and then I fed off them, and but I had to take a beat away from them to go, hang on a sec, let's regroup and let's figure out what this means for me. What does, for the listeners, what does chronic illness mean for you? Not what people are telling you it needs to mean for you. And that's I still have the cancer. I can't say I identify with it, but I know it's my path to go on this healing journey, however that looks like. And I really had to surrender to the fact is like I was avoiding death so much I wasn't living.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, wait a sec. Yes, I'm going to go on that snow trip. Yes, I'm going to book that 3 months in advance because I was not doing that. Like I was not
Okay.
booking things ahead of time because I'm like, well, but what if I die?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, hang on a sec. If like I've done a lot of mental mindset work over probably been doing it for over 20 years now. So I know that our mind has a lot of power over our body. And I always say our physique follows our psychic, like whatever we're thinking, our body will often follow. So if I want to be a marathon runner, I'm going to have to think that first and believe that first before I can do it.
yeah. Oh, 100%. And I think sometimes people think mindset is just positive mindset, but it's not. It's
And
having that.
often
Yeah,
positive mindset is spiritual bypassing.
yeah,
It like I've experienced that. I was that
yeah,
person too. It's sort of like, actually, we need to dig deep here. Like, why do I feel this way? Why am I having this emotional reaction? And yeah, I think that just, and that's why I do the readings, because we tend to get into those aspects. And people could come to me for a business reading, what should I do next in my business? And then it's like, well, actually, you're fine in that area. What you need to work on is like the emotional and the mental aspects of it.
yeah, absolutely. And just so people know a little bit, so in terms of your cancer, so what happened there in terms of, yeah, where you said you felt like you did, so it wasn't a surprise to you, but then you get diagnosed and yeah, so I've been diagnosed, for people just listening now, with stage 4 breast cancer in remission. But yeah, what was that look like for you?
Yeah, it was this slow cascading effect. These things don't happen instantly. They do. I
Yeah.
mean, they've kind of proven that cancer generally happens over time and accumulates over time, and different cancers are different things. So I got diagnosed with a colon cancer. And like, no offense to any old men listening, but it's an old man's cancer. Like I'm 39. I shouldn't
Yeah.
have it, really. And of course, I was symptomatic for quite some time, and it was progressively getting more intense. And of course, I'd go to the GP, and she's like, we should, colon. She's like, thinking colon cancer. Yeah, we should test for that. She's like, but you won't have it because of your age. And this is very, very common these days because
Yes.
there is a cancer epidemic. We can't not admit that there
Yeah.
is a cancer epidemic. And I love asking why, and that's a whole different rabbit hole. But being an intuitive, like I knew what I needed to do. But other people around me were like, because I felt so vulnerable, and of course we're vulnerable. We're experiencing this thing. We're having an illness. We don't know what's going on. Our intuition's kind of trying to talk to us, but then other people are telling us other stuff. Like it's really hard to discern the difference. And you kind of just end up being a shell because everyone around you is kind of saying what you should and shouldn't do. So that was sort of happening for me. And so, of course, I did what probably no one else would do. And, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to pack up my life. I'm going to sell everything and go traveling. I was just, and also like my relationship with my mother was still coming to light for me. I was just not it wasn't like I had created a story, a positive story in my head about my mum, but that's not what was actually happening in front of me. So that's a whole other aspect too, is like we can be these positive people,
Yeah.
but are you actually seeing what's in front of you as well, what's actually going on? So I ended up becoming estranged from my mother, and still am to this day, or people could listen to this a couple of years now, I mean, who knows when. And then I just kind of like, now I just don't know what to do next. So that was where the traveling, I'm like, well, I know how to travel, so we'll do that. So I'm a solo mum. So me and my I have 3 kids, but 2 that live with me, where we traveled. I bought a car that I wanted. Also, I'd just been through family court, like
Ah,
2, 3 years through family court. So there's been this whole accumulation, and it was very aggressive. It almost broke me. Yeah, it really did. And I know that's a link to the cancer as well. It's part of the emotional stuff that I just can't digest physically. So, all this stuff is happening and all these chapters were ending with the mum and the family court. And then I was like, okay, yeah, let's just travel. Like that just feels like the next best step. And we are very experienced travelers and campers, and we've trekked hundreds and hundreds of kilometers with the camels out in the desert. So like it's not foreign to us to do crazy things. So the kids and I traveled down the coast of Australia, the East Coast, for a couple of months. And I was like, I don't even know how I did it because I was getting worse. I mean, traveling's exhausting as it is. I had no help except for the kids. We had the two dogs as well. And, it was this weird paradox of where we were having the time of our lives, but then I was like, something big is going on here in my body. And, camping essentially, it was a challenge. But essentially, I got down to our home state in Victoria in Australia. That's where we're from because we moved up to Queensland for a bit. And I crumbled as soon as I got into my home stay. It felt safe for me, right? Like, so I just crumbled and I'm like, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to ED. And luckily I had our caravan in a friend's driveway, and nothing was perfect about this because I was waiting for the perfect moment to have support and have the right situation to really get down to this issue, my health issue. And I ended up with ED, and it was actually a secondary infection that was causing me the issue. It wasn't the cancer itself. And then, of course, they go in there, they find stuff, they start biopsying, and, I'm without my consent anyway. They just do that because they think it's the best thing to do. And then a few weeks later, they're like, well, actually, when I came out of that mini surgery, essentially, they're like, well, it's either Crohn's disease or cancer. I'm like, oh, well, it's funny because right then I was thinking, oh, Crohn's disease. Oh, I could totally heal that. I'm sure it's Crohn's disease. Like, I'm sure it's like that is so healable. And then just knowing what I know, I've been in alternative health for a long time.
Yeah.
And then a couple of weeks later, I'm just like Crohn's disease. Yeah, I convinced myself I had Crohn's disease. And a couple of weeks later, the surgeon was like, yeah, it's colon cancer. I'm like, what? Like, I was just like, how is it that? Like, because it's just, I have Crohn's disease. I'm like, are you sure it's not Crohn's? Like, did you guys misdo the biopsy or whatever? Like, are you sure? And then I really felt like it felt like someone hit me in the chest. Like, I'm like, whoa, this is, okay. Like, and that's when I just felt a bit. So I'm like, okay. And so I spent, after I left his office, after he gave me the diagnosis, yeah, I really did. I crumbled for a bit. And then, of course, they want to push you through all the things like, okay, so you've got this thing, then you got to go see this person and that person and and do all the things. And, it was chaos. And I had no moment to actually sit. Like, they diagnose you and they try to push you through the system so quickly and so fast that they treat it like an emergency. And what I learned is often 99% of the time, it's a non-emergency and you have time to think.
Yep.
Did you experience that too?
Well, I was sort of fortunate because my MS, lucky having two diseases, that slowed things up because I was booked in really quickly for a mastectomy and all, but it had already spread. So that was cancelled the day before my mastectomy was originally, and then we had to put things on hold because of medication I was on for MS. And that did give me a chance to actually breathe and work things out. And fortunately, then 6 months later, when I was going to go onto a different drug, the cancer had already gone. So it gave me sort of 5-6 months to call upon everyone. And I was still, following medical advice, but I was like, right, we've got 4 or 5 months. And then I was saying, can I have a healing with you and do some energy healing? And everyone, can you pray? And then I lost my voice. I couldn't speak. Then that meant I had to stop and heal. So now I'm thinking, okay, thanks, universe, because I would have been working and all, and I was annoyed at the time. But I think now that helped me heal.
Absolutely. We really do need that time just to sit with ourselves. Like the thing is like time is actually a human construct anyway. So like when we actually and because I do a lot of channeling and talking to the spiritual realm and even people that have passed being a medium as well, like they don't have a concept of time. Like and so I understood that. And so because it got so, what the straw that broke the camel's back was that my surgeon's like, okay, like this is actually out of my field. You need to go into the city and talk to this guy. He's at the major cancer center. I can't remember what it's called, Peter something.
Peter Mac.
Yeah, Peter Mac and all the things. I'm like, okay, the words he's saying sound good, so I'll go. And I saw this surgeon. He didn't even have my records. I walked in and I'm like, do you have my records? And he's like, oh, no, but just tell me what you got. And I'm like, what? Anyway, so so I explained it to him. He's like, okay. I maybe spent 3 minutes explaining it. He's like, okay, this is what we need to do. We need to give you like a hysterectomy. I'm like, what? And then he's like, oh, we need to cut out all the colon down there. Oh, and we need to take out all the lymph nodes as well. And we need to, and all I heard was just cut me off down, like down from the waist down, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
And just good luck living and surviving and doing the things you want to do. Anyways, it was like, and I walked out of there and I wasn't even emotional. I was just kind of like annoyed. I was like, how? He didn't have my records. He had no idea who I was as a person. He didn't ask me my life goals and my life purpose or anything. There was none of that conversation, And that's what I feel a lot of the medical industry. It's like they don't ask you who you are in life, because our medical conditions can affect that. But there's always, I feel like a really good surgeon, or they would help you figure it out what's best for you, but they just put you through as a number. That was my experience, and that was it. I was after that, and then instantly after I left that office, a friend of mine sent me a course. She's like, this came up in my Facebook feed, and I thought of you instantly. She's like, I don't know what it means, but have a look. And I had just bought this guy's course. It was Chris Beats Cancer. I don't know if you've seen his stuff. So Chris Beats Cancer. He's got some books and stuff, and another friend prior to that had recommended it as well. So I've already been in the course, and I was already doing the course. It was just confirming a lot of stuff I already knew about cancer. And this Chris guy, he had colon cancer too and healed it and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, thank you so much for that message. I've got it. It's landed. I know what I need to do moving forward. That's like I shut off from the medical input. Like, and I know this can feel really kind of like there's always two different type of audience that hear this are like, well, that sounds really responsible. And can I just say also that I lost friends during this process because they're like, you're so selfish. You're a mum. If you don't go through chemo and radiation, like your kids won't have a mum. And my thought back to that was like, if I go through that, they're not going to have a mum. Like I know that was going to be the thing that gets me. And the thing that was because I'm clairvoyant. So when I'm doing psychic and having psychic downloads, I can see the picture that's going to unfold. And I saw me on my deathbed, and I saw that I was like, after I'd had the chemo radiation, like I was like skin and bone. I was like so underweight, and that was the last my kids saw of me.
Yeah.
So I just knew I couldn't. Like, that's just not my path. It's not. I'm not saying that should be anyone's. We all have that intuition, and we can tune into it.
Yeah, I think so. And as I said, and it's interesting, a couple of things. I've been really fortunate. The surgeon who ended up, when my cancer came back into my breast, I went through and had 2 single mastectomies. She was like angelic. She was the most beautiful person, and I felt so at peace. And I think if we do sometimes slow down and quieten our minds and all, we can then, and this is what MS taught me, you can be guided to, like my neurologist, when I was really, really sick early on, he'd say, are you meditating? and that's neurologists.
What
And I sort of,
really great people.
yeah. So I've been very blessed, but I think that was a lot of work too, and was respectful too. Spent over an hour chatting to me about options and disclosed that her mother-in-law had been through a mastectomy and it's very emotional. So you can have that, and it just shows that that's what we need. But what you're talking about with chemo as well, I feel like I've been saved by not having to make that choice, because I don't know what choice I would make, but my body wouldn't cope. Like, it just wouldn't cope. Like, MS is a lot to deal with, and having that on top of it, it would have been brutal.
The truth is, like, nobody knows how they will cope. Like,
No.
so nobody like, and that's been a very humbling lesson, is like, because like it's also a really kind of funny ha-ha thing, is like, I've always known I'd actually get cancer, because I, like, 10 years, 15, probably more than that, even 20 years ago, I was like doing loads of research on cancer and how it forms in the body and how people are healing naturally. This was like 20 years prior to a diagnosis. So I either thought it's going to happen to somebody really close to me and I can help them, or it's going to happen to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, the better of me thought, oh, it's going to be someone close to me for sure. I'm healthy. I eat like really good diet, wholesome diet, organic diet, all things. So, and that was another big kind of thing for me as well, is like, how does a super healthy person, and when I say super healthy, I'm just like I'm not the definition of the medical healthy, like, oh, they eat in the pyramid, within the food pyramid sort of thing. Like, I was like really wholesome, down to earth foods, organic, made my own stuff, fermented foods, like all the things, because I'd always had stomach issues even as a child. I feel like I need to mention, and particularly it's been another onion layer peel off me in regards to my healing, is a couple of weeks ago I had this and it was a pivotal moment for me as a child. I went to hospital because I kept getting these severe stomach aches. And of course, like, they bring you in, and it was a kids ward. It was fun. Like, hey, I got a break from my family. So I grew up in a very violent household. And of course, I got all these stomach aches, literally, like, it was making me sick. And so I went to hospital in the pediatric ward. It was awesome. You got spoiled. Like, I was really I needed that retreat. And they're doing all the tests and stuff, like, oh, it's probably appendix, blah, blah, blah. And anyway, after a week, they're like, we can't find out what the issue was. And my stomach pain was getting less of an issue. Like, it was actually reducing. And they're like, do you want to take Panadol? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And I was just like, getting better, essentially, just by having a break from life. So what happened from there is, I remember it must have been a pediatrician. My mom had come to visit, and honestly, I wasn't even looking forward to I didn't need my parents. I was like happy.
Yeah.
I was like, I just need my animals around me. Please bring those in. And the day that I got a discharge, they said to my mom, they're like, look, we don't know what's going on, but I think she's just doing it for attention. And I just remember hearing that, and I was like, wow, okay, like, I don't know. Okay, well, maybe I am doing it for attention. So essentially that set a trajectory for the rest of my life to not make my ailments a big deal. Oh, you got a broken leg? Don't worry about it. We'll just we'll play it out for 5 days and see if it's really broken, and then we'll go figure it out. So my life journey has been actually trying to undo that. And then when I went to ED, I had the mini surgery. I was in hospital for a week, and I was recharging. Like, hospitals, they're not easy places to be in, but I was so unwell and so burnt out that I'm like, this is a freaking holiday, I've just been in, and I just put my noise canceling headphones in, and I played music the whole time and took my antibiotics and all the things. And that was a real retreat for me. So a very similar experience to the childhood stuff. And this time I wasn't making it up.
Not at all. You had lots of doctors telling you. It is very real. So for you, moving forward then, what does healing look like? What's your thinking of, you're talking about peeling back the layers, which is confronting, but, if that's needed to then work through living with cancer. Is that sort of what does it look like?
So after diagnoses and like giving myself a few weeks to actually make a decision for myself, everyone's like, you got to make a decision, you got to make a decision, you got to make a decision. That's overwhelming. Like I can't make a decision while you're telling me I should make a decision. So give me a break. So I just spent some time really just in a cave, and I wasn't communicating with anybody. I was just really trying to figure out what my next steps were, and allowing the downloads to come through, because when we get diagnosed with these things, we go into our very human, very fight or fright mode, or freeze or fawn. We that's sort of what happens, and I knew I was in that state, so I really had to take a beat. And luckily I had some friends, or a friend around me, and she called me because she was diagnosed with breast cancer too, healed it, got diagnosed again and healed it again, all alternatively to, I think, no, sorry, correction, she had a mastectomy. And I remember being on the phone to her, and and nobody's ever asked me this in my life. And she's like, and I'm telling her, like, people, doctors are saying this, my friend's saying that, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, Tara, what do you want to do? And honestly, I knew the answer as soon as she asked. I'm like, holy crap, nobody's ever asked me what. She's like, what do you want? What do you want? And I'm like, I want to do this my way. Like, I don't want to have surgery yet. It's still an option, and I don't want to go through chemo, and I don't want to go through radiation. I'm like, I'm a solo mum. Like, there isn't that support out there. And if I want to live my life to the fullest, even if it's for the next 5 years, at least I can do that as a healthy mum with my kids, like, it's like, I don't want to be sick for 5 years just trying to recover from chemo and radiation, which is what I saw in my vision. So yeah, once she asked that, that just put a fire in my belly, and I'm like, I know exactly what I need to do. So I was actually living with a friend at a time, and when I disclosed this to her, she freaked out. And so essentially I got kicked out of her place. And so we found her, because I went from traveling to, diagnosis, and then, oh my God, I have to get some stability.
Yeah.
And yeah, then I just went on this trajectory, and I'm like, there's really not much I need to change about my diet. Like, I live an anti-cancer diet. It was so weird, this paradox. And I'm like, this has got to be really deep-seated emotional stuff here, and also environmental factors as well. So I set myself up on this trajectory. And honestly, I'm not one of these people that can say that it stayed consistent the whole time. Like, I did this thing and it's helped. It's like I've done this thing for like 3, 4, 5 months, 6 months, and then my body's asked something different. I've had a different download.
Yeah.
So it's never just been one thing. And I really think you might be able to talk to this about your healing journey. It changes as we change. As we peel off the onion layers, things do change. Suddenly you don't need to take that supplement anymore,
But I think what doesn't change is your intuition. You've just got to be intuitive as to what your body's asking, what you're emotionally asking, and then having that inner confidence to follow that. I think what MS taught me is to have the confidence to take a different path. I was really sick in 2000, could hardly move, got walking, not very well, but then ended up over in Scotland for a year and traveling by myself. So, your passion for travel, that was me. But I didn't think I needed that this time. It's like, but, because Andrew's health wasn't great, and we knew moving to the country would be good. So it was taking a path that lots didn't necessarily believe in, but then we're living off the grid on 100 acres of land, because I know he needed it and I needed it. So, yeah, I think the constant is being in tune with yourself.
It really is. And that is the human experience. How can we be human, but also be intuitive and spiritual? And often we either flow more to the one side, like, there's not always that nice balance and it's just a human experience. Like, we can't have that balance all the time. And definitely, like, that being diagnosed was such a human experience for me. It was just terrifying. But then when I found myself in that again and able to bring in my spiritual nature, who is Tara, And that's when things improved for me. So I knew I had cancer. I knew this diagnosis, but then I thought to myself, what does this mean for me? Like, yes, I've been given this word cancer, like you've been given this word MS.
Yeah.
But what does it mean for me? And how do I want to transmute that into my life experience? And that's essentially what I had to take. I had to transmute it into what that means for me. So I call myself, I would probably never identify as a cancer survivor if I end up curing this. And I've also said that if I live with cancer for the rest of my life, I'm also okay with that, because I don't feel like I have cancer. Like, I don't feel sick. I don't feel unwell. And something I've learned is that often we don't know we have cancer until they do a biopsy, and then they're like, oh, you got cancer. And then what happens? People suddenly get really sick.
Yeah.
Because they've got this diagnosis. So like, that shows the power of the mind. Like, oh my God, I have cancer. And 3 months down, or the doctor says, look, we're pretty sure you've only got 3 months to live. And then what happens? People die in 3 months.
Yeah.
But then you hear stories like yours and people don't die in 3 months, and then they keep going. So
Yeah.
I knew I could choose my trajectory. I knew it wasn't my time to go. So that's when I really started playing around with, okay, what is my body trying to tell me? So for me, this has been a massive lesson in tuning into my body. Like, if someone's telling me that I've got this thing and that I should be doing X, Y, Z, but what do I need? You know, it's sort of like this want versus need sort of situation.
Yeah, for sure. And I just think too, you mentioning the whole expiry date, and I didn't ask how long, and and it wasn't pushed on me. Like, even my oncologist was really bright about that. She said, oh, we've got so many options, don't worry about that. So that was good. But I think when people are told that, and also being told you have a terminal illness, I never use that word, because what happens if I keep saying that over and over again? Well, of course, and yeah, I might die with it, but that doesn't mean I die because of it. So, and what I love too, and when you're mentioning, I think saying, well, I'm really healthy, all these things, but I actually think that helps us to heal, because the cancer had already spread to my liver. I don't drink. I never have. Probably my decision with MS, really healthy liver. And it disappeared from my liver within only a few months. And it's like, well, that was saying, no, you're not welcome here. We're too healthy for you. So, yeah, I think we can still, if we are healthy, is not to give up on being healthy just because we do have cancer. It's like, keep going with that.
So I've healed a lot of ailments in my past, some pretty full-on ones with Louise Hay's kind of work. And then a friend, she'd said it to me like probably 5 times before I finally started listening to her. She's like, you should check out this thing called German New Medicine. She's like, I really think you could really benefit from this. She's like, you're already halfway there. This stuff will really resonate with you. And so I started looking into this thing called German New Medicine. And I'm like, wow, this is Louise Hay's stuff on steroids. And it was formulated by a physician, a German physician, hence the German part. And he figured out through MRI scans as well that you can look at somebody's brain and pick up the inflammation in their brain and pinpoint exactly in their body where we're talking specifically about cancer, where that cancer is. So I was like, holy, this is interesting. I like a bit of science too. And his personal experience was Dr. Hamer was his name. And of course, he got ridiculed and mysteriously died, all those things. What happened to him personally is he was on a holiday in Europe somewhere with his adult son. And somehow they got caught up in a gun crossfire, and his son got shot in front of him. And a few months later, Dr. Hamer developed testicular cancer.
Yeah.
And already starting this work, he started putting the dots together. Like, it's just amazing. I find people who do this work, I'm like, this is their downloads. This is their intuition. They're here as a gift, Yeah. And then he was able to cure his own testicular cancer. He linked it to his son's death because his body wanted to start, like, biologically, we're still very much evolutionary creatures, wanted to start making more sperm to create more babies because he just lost one essentially. So that created an accumulation of cells, and I'm no scientist, so anyway, his work's interesting. You can go look it up. And then he developed a tumor and cancerous and all that sort of stuff. So when he got to the emotional root cause of this, he was able to clear it. So he cleared it, and he'd been helping people around the world doing this. He's no longer alive, but he's got some incredible books and incredible people that are still doing this work. So it's not something you necessarily go and study. Well, you can study it online, and I'm personally studying it. But one thing I learned about secondary cancers, and one thing I'm very, very aware of, is like the shock of the first cancer diagnosis can create another cancer diagnosis. So, and I think that perhaps happened to me as well, because the last PET scan that I had showed the colon cancer. And then they're like, oh, there's something in the lungs. And they said something. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to make anything of something. So let's just see what happens. Like, I'm an athlete, like I run, like I have no issues breathing and all that sort of stuff. And because I knew this about the shock of a secondary cancer, and I've spoken with a couple of practitioners, and they're like, look, that's pretty common. I wouldn't be freaking out about that. So yeah, I chose not to freak out about it. And I haven't had a PET scan since a few months ago. But yeah, like it's just interesting. And even with a diagnosis, something simple like having a rash on your face, and then it suddenly gets worse and worse and worse, because we go through this process of devaluing ourselves. Like, what have I done wrong? Why have I got this illness? How will people perceive me? And I devalued myself. I'm like, people see me as like this healthy person, and she has cancer. So I went through a devaluating process of like, wow, like what are people going to think of me? You know?
Yeah, similar. The week I was diagnosed, I was about to launch a course helping people live well with MS. And then I thought,
oh wow. I mean, how's it? Wow. I mean, come on, you can't make that up.
No. So I was like, well, we can't do that. But then I was thinking, I had always thought what I was teaching would help people with any illness. But I was thinking, how can someone living with a stage 4 cancer, how can they say they'd be saying, what would you know? You don't have a diagnosis like I have. So then I was like, shut up about saying these things out loud. So then I've applied everything to living with this diagnosis, and it still worked. And I'm like, okay, I don't need to test it out on anything else now. It's just on MS and cancer, and we know everything in between. But you're right, you do. You think, they'll think I'm not dealing with prioritizing my well-being enough, because I've now got a cancer diagnosis.
And funny enough, I only really had that one kickback from a friend. Like, I was so surprised on that my family was so supportive too. Like, well, I mean, it probably doesn't surprise them that I'm doing things differently. Like, I've always done things a bit differently. So, but like, I was just like, wow, people like, and also I think I really made it energetically clear that I didn't want people's opinions about my health, especially people that don't understand my way of living, like holistically and stuff like that. So I put myself in that energetic bubble. So I haven't had a lot of kickback in that way now. Like, it's people were just, they see that I'm thriving. I'm a cancer thriver, but also I don't want to identify with the cancer thriver part. I can also just be a thriver. I don't have to have the cancer to thrive.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And I think it does. You get into these worlds, and I always didn't want to be defined by MS. And I thought, well, thank goodness, because then what am I? Do I go to MS group, or do I go to cancer group, or what do I do?
Which group am I in?
Yeah. I don't know. So I just think it's really important for us to be identified by who we are and our response to whatever happens, not by what the actual hurdle is.
And people get really shocked when they hear I have cancer, and they're like, what? Like, how can you? Like, you look so healthy and you're fit and you're living life. I'm like, yeah, and
yeah, that's right.
Like this is it. And I find "and" such a powerful kind of statement. It's kind of like, I have this thing called cancer, and ... fill in the blanks, create your own story about that. Like, you don't have to let someone else create your story for you. And that is probably the most pivotal message that could come through this episode, is like, you get to create your ... your story around this.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And it's so true. And I think that's what people, anything that happens to, it's your narrative and it's your story to tell. And we can't take that away from people by giving them your own fears and narratives to that story.
Yeah, and just it is an empowering place to come from. And the reality is, none of us can avoid death. It's going to happen. Sorry, spoiler alert, die. But we hold on to, and we're being taught to by the medical industry and by the way that we live, like, let's live longer, let's stretch out our lifespan, let's do this and that. It's like, why are we so attached to not dying? What got us to this point? Probably in evolution, it's sort of like, well, family members would die during the caveman days and there'd be grief, but we'd just get on with things as well because we were more connected to that intuition that we always had, sort of thing. So it's just kind of like playing with this idea is like, what is living? But like, if we're trying to avoid, like me, I was trying to avoid death so much, I forgot to live. I closed the door on everything. I closed the door on any new relationships and friendships. I closed the door on, I wasn't even doing any psychic readings. Like, who am I to do psychic readings? I have cancer. So, and even the camel aspect of side of things, I couldn't plan ahead because what if people pay me to do this work and I can't do it? But the truth is like this year, particularly, like I really had a big shift in January and I'm like, I'm just going to plan ahead and see what happens. And it's all been fine. Like I've been able to do the work, in fact, do it better than I've ever have done it. I'm doing readings for people. And honestly, I feel like even prior to being diagnosed with cancer, I felt like my container, my capacity wasn't that big. And I feel like just with this experience, like I've been able to expand, I can hold this thing called cancer and try to heal it whilst doing readings for people, whilst going and doing camel stuff, whilst being a parent to 3 kids, whilst insert the black. And even recently, I just went all out and I'm like, I've always wanted to, because there's nothing like a scary diagnosis to go, or where's my bucket list? Because like I need to read this. So I started doing foster caring for dogs. So I'm like, this is something I've always wanted to do. Why haven't I done this? And I totally underestimated how rewarding that would be. And I love it. And I thought it would drain me. And I was creating this story in my head, like, oh my God, I'm not going to have the capacity. And what if I get a dog I don't like? None of that's happened. Like, it's just been perfect.
Yeah, so that's so true because it just gives you a reminder to live, just to embrace life and live. And that's when you talk about a gift of a diagnosis. And I always say, of course, I'm not rapt to have cancer and MS, but that is what's going to happen to me in this lifetime. So what do we do about it? And how do we use that to keep living and embracing life? And I think you're right. Otherwise, we curl up and we start dying.
We do start dying. And because like even just a simple thing like to get fit and active or to eat a better diet, like what's the first step you need to take? You need to take a first step. If that's like getting into your pantry and chucking everything out that you don't want to eat anymore, like that's your first step. Sometimes I think I very much romanticize my healing journey. I'm like, because I'm just like this bright, bubbly person, but it's been treacherous. Like I've been through some really, really dark nights of the soul, fetal position on the floor, going like, I don't want to live. I've been through that stage. It's like, this is too much. I can't do this. I've also been through legal battles at the same time, and like it's been this shit show.
Yeah.
But I still have I feel like those things, I could have gone either way. I could have, rolled up in a ball and started dying, or I've chosen to expand my capacity on this. Yeah. I've chosen to expand how much more can I hold as a human being? And that's now affected my work life as well. So I'm able to read better for people and I'm able to do better work in my professional life as well. And also parenting too. Like my parenting journey has changed extremely in the last few months because I've been able to hold more capacity.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. Well, thank you. Let's leave it on that very positive note. I just love these types of conversations because you feel like you're chatting to others who get it. And sometimes it is the privilege of having these experiences that we can connect to others who do understand what hearing those words mean, but then what it means to keep going and keep living and having all these new experiences that we wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yes, it's so true. And if people want to reach out to me for a reading or whatever, they're welcome to just by taralea.com.au. So Lee spelled Lea.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll put that in the show notes as well, and we'll share on socials, because I can say I have had the experience, and if I didn't like it, I wouldn't be inviting you onto the podcast.
It was so good, and I loved reading for you too. So thank you for letting me in. Like, because it's a very vulnerable thing to do, is to have a reading, and I'm very, very picky with who I get readings from still. So yeah, like I get it, and that's why like I'm here to hold this space for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned before as well, I think what you do is keep it very real. And I think people get scared of doing things like that. I think, oh God, a psychic reading, that's, I don't want to find out. Well, you couldn't tell me I've got cancer. I'd already found that out. But it wasn't like that. It's like having a conversation, and it's like having someone with absolute clarity as to you're really brainstorming. But the added bonus is that you get this extra bit of clarity that you can share with me. And as we chatted about me writing another book. So that's the big thing that I can be sharing. But part of that is...
Spoiler alert!
yeah, that's right. But part of that was I knew that, but I was holding back from that, a bit like we were talking about. Who's going to want to read my book if I'm, MS and cancer? But it's like, no, there's still so much that we can share that we've learned. So definitely go to Tara. You said taralee.com?
.com.au.
Yeah.
So that's for like the energetic and intuitive stuff. And then if you want to learn more about camels, you can just go to camelchannel.com.
Yeah, Camel Channel. That's great.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, who knows? Up at Daisy Hill, we may end up with a camel.
We've got to get two. So
okay.
They're herd animal, and I would love to help.
Well, Andrew wants 2 donkeys. So
donkeys are great too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
I highly recommend both of them.
So we'll see. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Tara. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so hopefully, sorry, I get the waddle back in there. You really enjoyed that episode with Tara. I love the chat. A couple of things. Tara Lea, lea.com.au is Tara's website, so please connect with her there. If you're interested in having a psychic reading, I really encourage you to connect with Tara. Also, as I said at the beginning, if you are dealing with a hurdle in your life, I'm a big believer in what has worked for me has been challenging my thinking. Part of that is not being scared of people taking different approaches to something like cancer, but instead to learn from them. As I keep mentioning, I've got an incredible medical team, but I wouldn't be in remission, or I wouldn't be doing so well MS-wise if it wasn't for me approaching health differently as well. So for me, it's been energy healing, and really, when you're diagnosed with a stage 4 breast cancer, it crystallizes and makes you question life more. So spirituality has definitely played a role for me as well. And this leads very nicely to a new offer I have, which is a small, like a mini course, 4 videos about the elements that have helped me heal. So we're talking earth, air, water and fire. And in this mini course, if you go to hurdle2hope.com/elements, and remember Hurdle to Hope with the number 2, have a look there, because I just share how I've used each of the elements in my own healing, and I think you'll get a lot out of that. It really helps me to connect more, and I'm hoping it will help you as well on your own journey from Hurdle to Hope. So have a great week, and I really look forward to chatting to you again from Daisy Hill. Thank you for joining me on the Hurdle to Hope show. Please help me spread the word. Share this episode or others to friends, family members who you think will benefit from these conversations. Don't forget, we're also on YouTube now at Hurdle2Hope is the channel. And if you need support, resources, or a speaker for an event, please visit Hurdle2Hope.com. Don't forget Hurdle2Hope with the number 2. Enjoy your week, and if you're going through a difficult time, please remember, even in the darkest moments, hope is always there.